Hi, I'm Jack. For the last 15 years, I thought I had everything figured out. Lisa and I lived in a cozy two-story house on Maple Avenue, in a small town surrounded by hills and rivers. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and it was hard to keep secrets. I worked as a regional manager for a logistics company, often traveling for days. Lisa used to be a teacher, but she decided to become a housewife after we got married. She put a lot of effort into making our home warm and welcoming. Our house was always clean and cozy, with a garden Lisa loved and took care of. Life was simple and predictable, with the comfort of routines from our years together. We chose not to have children, which gave us the freedom to travel and enjoy life at our own pace. Our friends often admired our relationship, thinking we had a great understanding and harmony. But sometimes, things aren't as they seem. I was about to find out that my perfect life was built on lies. The changes in Lisa started small, as they usually do. She had always been careful about her appearance, but now she seemed too focused on it. I would come home from a trip and find her all dressed up, even if she wasn't going anywhere. Her clothes changed from casual to more elegant and bold. She also started keeping her phone close, which she never used to do. She received messages and stepped away to read them, her face lighting up with a smile that wasn't meant for me. I tried to push those thoughts aside, telling myself I was paranoid, but the doubts wouldn't leave me alone. Our conversations became tense, where we used to talk about everything. There was now a distance between us. She answered my questions vaguely and seemed distracted when we were together. The intimacy we once shared dwindled to almost nothing, replaced by an unsettling silence. One night, while unpacking after another work trip, I noticed something strange. Lisa had been out all day, and when she returned, she seemed nervous, almost excited. Her excuses about where she had been didn't add up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I began to observe more closely, looking for signs that my instincts were correct. Soon I found them. There were inexplicable charges on our credit card, dinners at expensive restaurants, and gifts I certainly hadn't received. She started going out more often, always with some new friends or old acquaintances I had never heard of before. One night, she said she was going to a book club meeting. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but something about her behavior made me suspicious. After she left, I decided to drive by the address she had given me. As I approached, I saw her getting into a car with a man I didn't know. They drove off together, laughing and talking like old friends. My heart stopped. I could no longer deny it. Something was very wrong. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was hiding something from me. The seed of suspicion had been planted, and there was no turning back. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to watch Lisa's behavior more closely and follow her movements when possible. It was exhausting, but the need to know the truth drove me. One day when she wasn't home, I decided to check her phone, which she had left charging on the kitchen counter. My hands trembled as I unlocked it using the code I had memorized over the years. I felt a flash of guilt, but it was drowned out by my overwhelming desire to know. I went to her messaging app and found messages from someone named Tom among other innocent conversations. My heart sank as I read through them, each message revealing more than the last. One message said, "I can't wait to see you tonight," and another said, "Last night was amazing." As I read on, I found explicit photos, declarations of love, and plans for their next meetings. I felt sick realizing how deep her betrayal went. I wanted to confront Lisa, but I needed clear evidence. So, I secretly installed a small camera in our bedroom, hiding it among the things on the shelf. It felt like a desperate move, but I had to know the truth with my own eyes. A few days later, I had to leave for another work trip. I told Lisa I wouldn't be home that night, hoping to give her the opportunity she seemed to be waiting for. As I drove away, a sickening feeling settled in my stomach. I parked a few blocks away and quietly returned. Sneaking in through the back door, I hid in a small room next to the bedroom, barely daring to breathe. Time dragged on, each minute stretching into an eternity. Finally, I heard the front door open, followed by soft footsteps and hushed voices. Lisa and Tom entered the bedroom, completely unaware of my presence. Through a small crack in the door, I watched in horror as they kissed passionately. They quickly took off their clothes and fell into our bed, the bed where Lisa and I had shared so many special moments. Seeing them together in my house was unbearable. My anger and sense of betrayal exploded, and I burst into the room shouting, "What the hell is going on here?" Lisa and Tom jumped up, trying to cover themselves, with shock and fear on their faces. "Jack, I can explain," Lisa stammered, but her words meant nothing to me. "Explain what?" I shouted. "That you've been cheating on me in our own house with him?" I pointed at Tom, who was frantically gathering his clothes. "Jack, please, it's not what it seems," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Save it, Lisa," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "I saw the messages. I saw everything. How long has this been going on?" She lowered her head, unable to look at me. "A few months," she admitted softly. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never wanted things to go this far." Tom, now fully dressed, tried to slip past me toward the door. "You're not going anywhere," I growled, grabbing him by the collar. "You're going to explain everything." "Hey man, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was married," he lied, his eyes darting nervously. "Don't lie to me," I shouted, pushing him back. "Get out of my house." Now, Tom fled, leaving Lisa and me alone in the room. She stood there, clutching the sheet, crying. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she whispered. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "It's too late for apologies, Lisa. You've destroyed everything we had." The weight of her betrayal hit me hard, and I knew things could never be the same. My world had shattered, and there was no going back. After Tom left, filled with guilt and shame, I focused on Lisa. She stood there, trembling, clutching the sheet as if it could protect her from the storm she had caused. "How could you, Lisa?" I asked, my voice raw with emotion. "How could you betray me like this in our own home?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Jack, I didn't want this to happen. It just happened. I felt so lonely. You were always away and Tom was there. Lonely." I spat, my anger flaring. "You think that justifies cheating on me in our bed? With him?" She flinched at my words, but continued, my fury demanding answers. "How long, Lisa? How long have you been lying to me?" She took a deep breath. "It started about 6 months ago. We reconnected at a school reunion. At first, we just talked, caught up. But then it became something more." "Something more?" I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. "You mean you started sleeping with him?" "Jack, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you. I love you. I really do." But I felt so alone and Tom made me feel wanted. My heart ached at her words, but the betrayal was too deep, too fresh. "Love. You call this love?" I gestured towards the bed, the scene of her infidelity. "This isn't love, Lisa. This is betrayal. This is deceit." She cried harder, sinking to the floor. "I know, Jack. I know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to end like this," she said. "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my voice weak. "Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you come to me if you felt lonely?" "I tried, Jack. I tried to talk to you. But you were always away, always busy with work. And when you were home, you were distant. I felt invisible." I shook my head, unable to comprehend her logic. "So, you thought another man would fix everything? You thought that was the answer?" "No," she whispered. "I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. I was weak and made a horrible mistake." We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her actions hanging in the air. Finally, I spoke, my voice softer, but no less pained. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. You've broken something in me. Something I don't know how to fix. She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. Please, Jack, give me a chance to make it right. I love you. I want to make it right. I stood up feeling exhausted. I need time to think. I need space to process all of this. I can't be around you right now. She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I understand. I'll stay at my sister's for a while. Please, Jack, don't give up on us. I watched as she packed a few things and left, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed through the house. Alone in the silence, I sank onto the bed, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The days after Lisa's departure were a blur. The house felt emptier, each room a painful reminder of what I had lost. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on anything but the betrayal and anger that simmered beneath the surface. As my anger grew, I knew I couldn't just let it go. I wanted Lisa to feel some of the pain she had caused me. She looked at me, tears running down her face. You were always away, and Tom was there, she said. Lonely? I snapped, my anger rising. You think that justifies cheating on me in our bed? With him? She winced at my words, but I needed answers. How long, Lisa? How long have you been lying to me? She took a deep breath. It started about 6 months ago. We reconnected at a school reunion. At first we just talked, caught up. But then it became something more. Something more. I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. You mean you started sleeping with him? Jack, please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I didn't want to hurt you. I love you. I really do. But I felt so alone, and Tom made me feel wanted. My heart ached at her words. But the betrayal was too deep, too fresh. Love. You call this love? I gestured towards the bed, the scene of her infidelity. This isn't love, Lisa. This is betrayal. This is deceit. She cried harder, sinking to the floor. I know, Jack. I know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to end like this. Then why did you do it? I asked, my voice weak. Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you come to me if you felt lonely? I tried, Jack. I tried to talk to you, but you were always away, busy with work. And when you were home, you were distant. I felt invisible, she said. I shook my head, not understanding her reasoning. So you thought being with another man would fix everything? You thought that was the answer? No, she whispered. I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. I was weak and made a horrible mistake. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her actions hanging in the air. Finally, I spoke, my voice softer, but no less pained. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. You've broken something in me, something I don't know how to fix. She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. Please, Jack, give me a chance to make it right. I love you. I want to make it right. I stood up, feeling exhausted. I need time to think. I need space to process all of this. I can't be around you right now. She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I understand. I'll stay at my sister's for a while. Please, Jack, don't give up on us. I watched as she packed a few things and left, the door closing behind her with a finality that echoed through the house. Alone in the silence, I sank onto the bed, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The days after Lisa's departure were a blur. The house felt emptier, each room a painful reminder of what I had lost. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on anything but the betrayal and anger that simmered beneath the surface. As the rage grew, I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed to make Lisa feel at least a part of the pain she had caused me. When I got home, I saw a message from Lisa on my phone. She had discovered the social media posts and was begging me to take them down. Please, Jack, she wrote. This is tearing me apart. I'm begging you. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. You destroyed our marriage first. Now you have to face the consequences. I blocked her number and tossed the phone onto the couch. The anger and pain were still there, but now I felt in control. Lisa had broken my world, but I wasn't going to give up without a fight. I would rebuild my life piece by piece and make sure she never forgot the price of her betrayal. The weeks following my revenge were a whirlwind of emotions. Lisa's social media accounts were flooded with comments, both from those who were outraged by her behavior and those who were outraged by my actions. Despite the satisfaction I felt in exposing her, there was still an emptiness inside me. I knew I had to face her again, have one last conversation to bring closure to this painful chapter of my life. Lisa was staying with her sister, and I called her to arrange a meeting. She reluctantly agreed, sensing that it was something we both needed. We decided to meet in a neutral place, a quiet park where we used to walk together during happier times. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, sitting on a bench by the pond. She looked tired, her face pale and drawn. The vibrant woman I had fallen in love with now seemed a shadow of her former self. I approached and sat down beside her, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. Jack, she began in a low voice. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The pain and anger were still too fresh. After a moment, I took a deep breath and forced myself to look at her. Why, Lisa? I asked, my voice barely steady. Why did you do this? She sighed, tears filling her eyes. I wish I had a simple answer, Jack. I felt lonely and abandoned. Tom made me feel wanted and alive. But it was a mistake, a terrible mistake. And I'm so sorry. Apologies aren't enough, I replied, my anger flaring again. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everything we built together. You lied to me, to our friends. You destroyed our life, I said. Lisa wiped her tears and nodded. I know what I did, and I hate myself for it. But Jack, you need to understand that it wasn't just about you being away for work. It was about us. We were drifting apart even before Tom came into my life. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. So now it's my fault, because I worked hard to support us. No, she said quickly, shaking her head. I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain. We both stopped trying. We let the distance grow between us, and I didn't know how to bridge it. Bridge the distance, I said bitterly. You could have talked to me, Lisa. We could have gone to therapy. But you chose to sleep with someone else. She flinched at my harsh words, but didn't argue. You're right. I should have done things differently. I was weak and gave in to temptation. And now I'm paying the price. I looked away, watching the ducks swimming in the pond. So what do we do now? I asked quietly. Where do we go from here? I want to try to fix this, Jack, she said, her voice pleading. I want to go to therapy, do whatever it takes to fix it. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I laughed bitterly. It's a little late for that, don't you think? You've already lost me, Lisa. The trust is broken, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired. She reached out to take my hand, but I pulled away. Please, Jack, she whispered. Give us a chance. I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. I can't, Lisa. I can't keep living with this pain. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I want a divorce. She gasped, her face showing her pain. No, Jack, please don't do this. We can fix it. I know we can. I shook my head, tears filling my eyes. I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's no going back. I need to move on, and so do you. She cried openly, her sobs echoing in the quiet of the park. I love you, Jack. I always will. I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. Goodbye, Lisa, I said softly before walking away, leaving behind the fragments of our once perfect life. As I walked to my car, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The meeting had been brutal, but necessary. I knew it was the first step towards healing, towards building a new life without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. The path ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Deciding to divorce Lisa was painful, but it was the only way I saw to move forward. Filing the papers was relatively simple thanks to the evidence I had gathered and the support of my lawyer. The trial, however, was an entirely different experience. It was an exhausting process, filled with accusations, counter-accusations, and painful memories I would rather forget. On the day of the trial, I put on my best suit, trying to appear calm and composed on the outside. Inside, I was a storm of emotions. I arrived at the courthouse early, and my lawyer David met me there. He was confident and reassuring, which helped calm my nerves a bit. Accompanied by her lawyer. She looked gaunt, her face pale, and her eyes swollen from crying. Despite everything, seeing her like that still hurt. But I had to stay strong. I couldn't let my emotions derail me. The trial began with opening statements, each side laying out their case. David presented the evidence of Lisa's infidelity and argued for a fair distribution of assets and custody of our home. Lisa's lawyer tried to paint a picture of a lonely, neglected wife, who was driven to infidelity by my constant absences and emotional distance. It was hard to hear my faults laid bare like that, but I knew it was part of their strategy. Lisa took the stand, her testimony filled with tears and regret. She admitted her infidelity, but highlighted her feelings of loneliness and isolation. Her lawyer asked her questions gently, painting her as a tragic figure who made a horrible mistake, but was sincerely remorseful. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. I talked about what happened before I found out about her affair, the evidence I discovered, and how it affected me. David helped me with the questioning, making sure I focused on the facts and not my emotions. During cross-examination, Lisa's lawyer tried to catch me off guard by questioning my absences and commitment to the marriage. I stayed calm and stuck to the truth. I worked hard to support us and never thought Lisa would betray me like this. The hardest part of the trial was when our mutual friends testified. They talked about the changes they saw in Lisa, her secrecy, and the messages I showed them. It was painful to see how much our friends were hurt by this betrayal. After days of testimony, evidence, and arguments, the trial finally came to an end. The judge reviewed everything carefully, his expression stern and unreadable. We sat in tense silence waiting for his verdict. The court finds that the evidence of infidelity is clear and convincing, he began. Given the circumstances, I award the marital home to Mr. Jack Turner. Mrs. Lisa Turner will receive a fair portion of the remaining assets, as determined by the financial documents submitted. Lisa broke down in tears as she heard the verdict, and I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was all over. The life we had built together was officially over. As we left the courthouse, Lisa approached me. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never wanted it to end like this." I nodded, too exhausted to respond. "I know, Lisa. But it's over now. We need to move on." David placed a hand on my shoulder as we exited the courthouse. "You did well in there," he said. "It's never easy, but you handled it with dignity." "Thanks, David," I replied, my voice hollow. "I just want to start over." And so I did. Coming home alone at first was strange. Each room held memories of our life together. But I knew I had to make it my own again. I redecorated, painted the walls, and bought new furniture. Slowly, the house changed from a painful reminder of betrayal to a symbol of my strength and new beginnings. The trial had been tough, but it gave me the closure I needed. Lisa and I would never be the same, but I could finally move on and focus on the future. The wounds would heal, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I was ready to rebuild my life, step by step. Rebuilding my life after the trial was a journey with ups and downs. The house, once a symbol of betrayal, started to feel like my own safe place. I put all my energy into fixing it up, making it a reflection of my tastes and my future, not the past I was leaving behind. Watching the transformation happen was healing in a way. I also threw myself into work, finding comfort in familiar routines and challenges. My colleagues, who had supported me throughout the ordeal, noticed the change in me. I became more focused, more determined. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. One night, as I was finishing up paperwork at the office, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend, Mike. He was organizing a get-together for some of our school friends and invited me to join. At first I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to socialize again, but I eventually decided it was time to reconnect with the world. The night of the get-together, I walked into the bar feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. It had been so long since I went out for something other than work or legal matters. But as soon I felt a sense of belonging that I had been missing. Mike greeted me with a hug. "Jack, it's been too long, man. How have you been?" "Better," I admitted, smiling. "It's good to see everyone." Throughout the night, I relaxed, chatting with old friends and sharing stories. It felt good to laugh again, to feel like myself. At some point, I found myself talking to Rachel, an old classmate who had recently moved back to town. She was warm and easy to talk to, and for the first time in months, I felt a spark of genuine interest in someone new. We exchanged numbers at the end of the night, and over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other regularly. Rachel was understanding and patient, and she really got my situation. She never pressured me to talk about Lisa or the divorce, but she listened when I needed to vent. Our relationship grew slowly, built on trust and respect. I eventually started looking forward to our dates. We would go for walks, try new restaurants, and even took a weekend trip to the mountains. Each new experience with Rachel helped me heal and showed me that life could be beautiful and joyful again. My relationship with Lisa had been full of stress and pain, but with Rachel, things were different. There were no lies or hidden agendas, just two people enjoying each other's company and creating something new. One night, as we sat on my newly renovated porch watching the sunset, Rachel looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "Jack, do you ever think about the future? About what you want from it?" I looked out at the horizon, reflecting on her question. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I want to move forward, to build a life that brings me joy. I want to leave the past behind and focus on the present. And I want to see where this goes," I added, looking into her eyes. She smiled, squeezing my hand. "I do too. I think we have something special, Jack." Holding her hand, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, I was excited about it. I had learned so much from the pain and betrayal, about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of living authentically. The divorce was a turning point, a painful but necessary step towards a new life. I realized that I was stronger than I had ever thought possible, capable of rebuilding and finding happiness again. In the end, Lisa's betrayal taught me a valuable lesson. True happiness comes from within, and it's possible to find light, even in the darkest times. With Rachel by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I knew I was ready to face the future. Life after betrayal wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving, finding joy in the little things, and being open to new possibilities. Looking at Rachel, I knew I had found a partner who valued and respected me. Together, we would build a life full of love, trust, and endless opportunities. The journey had been long and hard, but now I saw that the pain had only made me stronger. I was ready to face the future, step by step, with hope and optimism leading the way. Second story. I'm 21, and I've been dating my boyfriend, who's 22, for almost a year. I felt secure in our relationship until a few months ago, when I found bikini photos of another girl saved in his camera roll. I thought there must be a reasonable explanation, so I didn't worry too much at first. A few months later, I checked his phone again, while he was sleeping and couldn't find any explanation for why the photos were saved. I was so upset that I couldn't sleep, so I woke him up to ask. He said she sent the photos to him to help her decide which ones to post, and he saved them because she sent so many on Snapchat. I looked through their texts and saw that he had complimented her on her big butt. He says it was all innocent and that he just wanted to be nice because they were good friends. I've met her briefly before, but he blocked her number right after I found the photos, though he kept her on social media. Recently, at a party, this girl started screaming and swearing, saying she didn't know who I was and didn't know my boyfriend was in a relationship. I know she knows who I am, so I don't understand why she said that. I told my boyfriend right away, but he didn't confront her, and neither did I. I blocked her on everything from his phone. She called one of our mutual friends the next day, saying she didn't know why I was upset. Our friend told me that my boyfriend had called her that day. He said he called to ask what she said to me and why I was upset. He and his friends say she is crazy. I haven't checked his phone in about a month. He has a lot of female friends and snaps them whenever he has time. I've told him from the beginning that it makes me uncomfortable, but he doesn't care because they've been friends for a long time. He finally unfollowed his high school girlfriend after this incident. I've looked through his phone enough to know who he used to like and who he's kissed, but I'm still not sure he's being honest with me. I don't mind being around some of his friends, but it's embarrassing not knowing who he used to like or date. I don't know how to trust him anymore or how to move on. We don't get to spend much time together because he works all day. He treats me well, and maybe this is all innocent, but I feel insecure and avoidant. I hate feeling this way because it's not who I am, and he makes me feel silly for not being able to move on. I don't know how to trust him.